Kenny here with Gardening Simplified. It's December 21st and winter is coming. Now, I say winter's coming because if you don't watch your weather and see what's going on, you're going to lose some plants. Now, I always have a few plants growing in here, but now I have all my citrus, I have my bananas, oranges, all my figs, my rhubarb, everything that was out in my greenhouse that not going to take cold weather are brought inside. And that's what you need to do if you have a lot of plants that uh, won't take the weather. Now, sometimes it's not possible. So let's go out here and take a look at what else we need to look for. When it comes to your garden plants, there are some means of protection. Now, tonight it's supposed to get down to, it says 9. A couple years ago, it said that it was going to get down somewhere in the single digits and ended up -7. So you can't depend on the weatherman. They're guessing just like everything else. But as you can see, I've got every row possible just about covered up. I can't cover up my peas, but you need to try to cover up whatever you can. Now, if you're going to get down in single digits, I have my onions are covered. Onions are good about 10 degrees. Something people don't think about is their freeze-proof faucets or their drain-back faucets. Now, that and I've got a Y connection here. But as you notice, both of these are open because if you have this in the closed position, this ball is going to hold water and it will expand at that temperature and bust this. So you need to make sure that's everything that's out here is capable of draining back like it needs to so to function properly. Make sure any of your valves that are in the ground, make sure that they have their covers on them. Either you can pick up your watering wands and take them in and your hoses, or you can drain them back. Now this one is set this downhill that way and it's drained back. Same thing with these valves. They need to be open. Now my garlic will take cooler temperature, at least down to 0, I believe, on it, so we won't worry about it. Now I have some herbs here. It'd be nice to cover some of these, but as you can see, these are way too tall to do any good, and I could cut them back, but I'm not that concerned with them. I have some parsley there. But the main thing, if you're going to have one of these freeze-proof faucets, it's got to be drained back. Now, when you're dealing with a greenhouse, now I use that term loosely because a lot of us call a greenhouse and they're poly, they're not solid construction and such as that, but they function the same way. Now, greenhouse is really good for daytime heating. Right now, we can look in here and I've got the door open, but we're at a good 77 degrees. It's the bottom one down here. And that's good. But at night, last night, it got down to 30 and it got down to 30 in here. So they're real good at heating up fast in the daytime. It's only been light for about 3 hours and it was pushing up close to a little over 80 degrees. So I opened one door on them. You want them to warm up, but you don't want them to get too warm because especially if you're going to have a freezer, if your temperature drops inside, your plants are going to suffer from it. Right here, last year I lost my rosemary. Now we have this container here. We'll flip this right over on top of it, make sure it stays. Our oregano, it's under here now. It should survive, no problem. But we're not going to give it a chance, being it is in a container. All this garlic over here is going to be all right. There's some leek at the bottom of that row that should be all right too, but the onions are covered. In here, we covered everything last night is in the 30s, which mostly lettuce, but it's not frost tender items, except there's some basil over under one of those, and now it would be frost tender. But like I say, we covered it. Our one row is empty because that's where we had all our citrus, and we've taken that in. Now our carrots over here, they should do fine. We didn't put a hoop. We just covered them. In here, it really does a lot of good to put on this row cover, especially because there's no wind inside your greenhouse or high tunnel. But if it's unheated, it's definitely going to get as cold as it is outside. Sometimes they actually get colder. What I want to mention is, if you have a greenhouse and you have a channel on the end, which I built both of these, but I made sure that I put a channel on the end of them, for the fact, even though this one's got a baffle inside that breaks a lot of the wind, if this catches some wind, it just funnels it right in and cools it down a whole lot quicker. With this channel, you can fasten this down with the wiggle wire, and it keeps these ends from moving. If you have a drip system in your garden, now I take all my regulators and timers, make sure you take them up. But an important thing when you have a drip system is make sure your valves are open. If they're open, the water can drain back out of them, and you don't have a problem with them freezing. Normally your hoses have enough flex. If there are places where they hold water, it's not going to freeze and break them. It'd be very rare. But just realize some crops like these peas, and I'd hope that they'd stay through, but normally, about 26 degrees and they're toast. It was 30 last night. They did fine through that, but this tonight, and then it's going to be below freezing for 48 hours. It's definitely not going to be good on them. When you have things that are normally out in your garden, say, I have jugs with fish emulsion, stuff like that. I have a sprayer, and even my injector that I use now, it is open and it appears to be dry, but you don't want to leave it out to where it's possibly going to freeze and damage it or expand it where it doesn't work properly. If you have livestock, you want to make sure. Now we have a heat lamp here. This is our chicken tractor, which is part of our permaculture setup. But when you have chickens, you want to make sure that they're going to be warm. We do have a infrared heat lamp in there. The vent is closed to minimize air movement, and of course, most of us close up our chickens at night. If you have other livestock, take in consideration that it's going to be real cold. If you're going to leave your hoses out, like I say, it's best they're drained. If they aren't, they will flex some. Normally it won't damage them. The worst thing is connectors. So if there's water in connectors or if there's water in the wands, it's going to create a problem. Even though we've had a few freezes, your fruit trees, now these still haven't lost their leaves, they should be all right. It'll just freeze them back, and they'll go ahead and drop their leaves and go dormant. Now, if you have fig trees, that's a different story, because fig trees, now most of your common figs will take temperatures down to close to 0 degrees without any damage. But if you don't know what kind of fig it is, then you could be in for a problem. Now, this here is Texas Everbearing, and it has froze down to the ground because it got below 0 before, and it could do it again. But we're not going to be too concerned with it or this one, because it's the same. Now, this fig here, and it hadn't really gone all the way dormant, even though it's froze a couple times, but this is a Cadota fig, and This one is froze back last year and the year before. Now the year before was really cold, so, and it got to others. But if you're in a situation like this, and you know the temperature is going to be below what it was withstand, because Cadota has said that 20 degrees is about as cold as it can take. It's not a real cold hardy fig. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to come out here and I'm going to cut this back to the ground. I can take cuttings for this, use these cuttings to go ahead and propagate some more figs instead of just letting the wood die and lose any use of it. This here, this is a brown turkey, and it's kind of like the Cadota. Now some say it'll take real cold, but let me tell you, this is froze back every year, almost killing all of it. And I think this one actually froze back on part of it. Part of it did survive. But what I'm going to do is, because the temperature that is going to be this year down to 10, well, I'd say 9 or cooler, I'm going to go ahead and cut this wood and propagate it. But a lot of your trees will already be dormant here in East Texas. Now, these pear trees here, they've lost their leaves. Now, the other one, the Bartlett, it lost its leaves earlier, but it grew a few back and actually bloomed again. And it's kind of that way. But anyway, that's what we're looking at. Let's go look at this a little bit other over here. Now, this is the other garden, and this is where I have my carrots. Now, I can't don't have the ability to cover these. Now, carrots are normally good down to 10 degrees. Being they're really short and they're close to the ground level, there's a good chance that they'll survive. Now, I also have cover crops that I had put out here, which were edible cover crops, you know, rutabagas, mustard, turnip, stuff like that. And they don't show signs of coming up yet, which is kind of a good thing. They're close to being time to come up, but maybe the cold weather and them sensing has pretty much kept most of them from germinating. I do see a couple little plants there, but I'm not sure if that's from the cover crop or not. But like I say, there's going to be some things when cold weather comes that you just can't deal with. But make an effort to take care of those that you can. Anyway, I hope this is helpful to you, as far as, and I hope you get prepared. You know, here in East Texas, and it's going to go pretty far south, we're going to have that bad weather, and it's best to be prepared. Anyway, if you want to follow me on YouTube, well, you know, hit that subscribe, hit the bell, give it a big thumbs up, and enjoy your gardening experience.